A bit of indoors playing around today. Um, on the BSA, we have Pitman arm steering. It's a Pitman arm system where the two arms have a concentric centre in the middle of the Pitman arm. It's not one you've got them side by side. So one of the steering tie rods is slightly further forward than the other. Now, when I've been driving it, the BSA, it's been a bit twitchy at high speed. The steering is very immediate. You get lock to lock in about just over a third of a turn, which is not an awful lot. So I've tried a few things and none of them have really worked too well in trying to gear the thing down. Looking at various epicyclic gearboxes and little bits and pieces that I could scrounge off the internet, but none of them have been a contender. So I thought I'd try and make a steering rack with enough travel, and I need about 45mm either side of centre, so 90mm of total rack travel to gear the arms and give me a reasonable steering ratio of nearly a full turn lock to lock. So I went online, AliExpress, delivered, free shipping, £12.49 for two 500mm pieces of gear and two 30-tooth pinions with a 10mm hole in the middle, and they took nearly a month to come. So what have we got? We've got two pieces of 30 by 30 angle iron available from any hardware store. Another piece ground out of that same angle iron, 3mm thickness angle iron, quite beefy stuff, into the shape of an arm with a space here where I'm going to put an hole for a 10mm tie rod to the steering arm on there. That's bolted onto the front of the rack. Now if you look at the rack, you can see, maybe if we zoom in there, that piece is just level with the tops of the teeth. That is one bit of the design to try and stop anything moving out of where it should be on the rack. I've not quite got that where I want it yet, but it's not too far off. Okay, so there's a 30-tooth pinion. It's mod 1, so each tooth is pi in dimension. In other words, it will move the gear per tooth pi, 3.14mm. So that's quite a handy way to do it. I quite like that idea, because you've got 30 teeth, 30 times pi gives you 90 and a bit for the rotation. 93 or 4, something like that, and I need 90, so nearly a full rotation will give me lock to lock when it goes on. These little bearings here, they're KP triple O's, 10mm centre shaft. Obviously I've got to get the shaft onto the steering column yet. Underneath we've got two sets of ball races ganged up, and they are, what are they ones? They are 698s for 8mm bolts, so 8mm in the middle, 19mm on the outside, 6mm wide. It's a 12 by 12 rack, so that works there. The washers, as you can see, are slightly smaller than the bearings, so the bearings run free under pressure, and that piece of metal, again, if you look at the bottom of it, you can see it just lips there, so that is actually acting as a guide to where those 3 washers are there, to stop it moving laterally too much, and that works quite well. When I built it, I saw a design on the internet that basically used a bit of metal like that, similar sort of thing, but the precision that you had to get the shaft in there for an O-like bearing was more than I can manage with the drills and equipment I've got. So I made this, you can just see that shim underneath there that I've put in, so that it was going to be shimmed every time, and that gives me the ability to change the thickness of that shim to tighten the gear rack if I've got the hole slightly eccentric. It seems to work. So the gear is locked onto the pinion with 2 Allen grub screws, and I'm going to bore those into the shaft a little and get them stuck in with some heavy duty Loctite when they're in there. I'm going to get a different shaft here. It needs to be 10mm really, welded into the bottom of a steering column, threaded there, so it's belt and braces. You've got 6 sets of grub screws stopping anything moving there, and I'll put a nut and a washer on there, a nylock on there to stop it moving backwards and forwards just in case everything else fails, which I don't think it will. And that's basically it. I've got to find a way of mounting it yet and think about it, but it gives me end to end a total of nearly 100mm of travel. I can't use all that because my steering arms lock up about 90, but the little rack, when it's finished, is a lot smaller than the ones that you can buy commercially. End to end, it's, well, 9 and a bit inch. I cut the gear rack itself at 200, so I've got plenty of gear rack left. I've got another pinion left as well, so if I beg it up I could make another one. These bearings, oh, I don't know, they're about £6 a pair. These bearings are less than £1 a piece, so less than £4 on the bearings, nuts and bolts, bit of angle iron, a cheap rack. And it's got a lot less lash in it than any of the systems I've tried so far. And I've still got to fine tune it here and there to get it absolutely spot on, but it's working well. Anyway, that's it.